Sekou Kone has dropped a major update on his injury situation after he was forced off when Man United's under-21s were playing against Huddersfield Town in a game that United lost 4-1. I'm here to give you that update, but also question is, are we beginning to see the same problems that we saw with all the other new exciting young kids that came in at Manchester United, from Kobe Mainu to Lenny Yoro and now Sekou Kone? Welcome to the United of Sport. My name is Webb. Like, share, and subscribe as we get to talk about Manchester United and what's happening now. This is the latest update that Sekou Kone has dropped about his injury that he sustained last night. That's the previous night, as Manchester United did lose 4-1 to Huddersfield Town. That's the under-21 side, which was playing for. Sekou Kone was playing in that game, and it was his third game for the under. There was one for the under-19s. Then that was his second with the under-21s, and he started this one. It was televised. The people loved him. He played 42 minutes of the game, and in that game, he I think won 4 out of 6 duels. He was so physical in the middle. He was so robust. He was a beauty to watch in the middle of the park for the under-21s, and indeed everyone was impressed with his performance, like they were in all the previous ones. But he took a nasty tackle on his shin that saw him be forced off in the 42nd minute after he had I think put on a case for himself, but he couldn't go on. And later after the game, he was seen living on crutches, and clearly that showed that it wasn't good at all. It wasn't okay at all. I mean, that was the same. If you remember, you can relate that image to what we saw with Lenny Yoro, I think, in the last Open Ultimate game of preseason, when we were all excited to see him play for the club. He certainly had or perhaps the dark world had other ideas, I should say. It was not luck for him, as he was forced to wait, and until now, he's yet to play to make his first senior debut for Man United, his first competitive debut for the team. So same story there with Sekou Kone, and he comes up and drops. That was him being escorted off as he limped off in the 42nd minute. It was quite disappointing, but I mean, this is what tests your character as a player, because they're trying to see his development and see when he will be ready to break into the senior team, because that's the expectation, that he can actually come in and fit into the senior team. But that's what he posted, saying that the risk of the job, so we assume all the consequences. It is God who decides everything. So clearly, for me, that shows you that it's perhaps quite serious, and maybe we should be waiting a little bit to see him. And remember, being only 18, he cannot be rushed to really be brought back and play. There shouldn't be pressure, because this is a development stage he's at in his career as a player. He's still developing as a footballer. But you see this and you're thinking, I mean, this is one of the biggest issues that Ruben Amorim, sadly, like Eric Ten Hag had to endure. Probably Amorim as well might have to endure the same problem of injuries. And again, not to say that they don't happen to other clubs. I think each and every club has got injury situations. But let's be honest, I think the rate at which injuries have been coming at Man United is quite a bit of a concern, and continues to be. We're thinking that Ineos could have got the perfect antidote for that, but clearly it's not there yet. And I'm not the one who really believes in jinx and stuff. And but of course, the people who are bigger in football will tell you that in football there is a bit of luck in it as well. And if you need it's there, you could be thinking maybe it's not really lately on the side of Man United in all fronts, in terms of results and performances, but also in terms of player fitness, because it's one thing for you not to have results and performances from players, but it's another thing for you to be attacked by injury after injury after injury. Now, the beauty is with the senior team now, many, if not most of our players have returned. They are back. I mean, we saw Tyrone Malaysia play. He looked quite, determined. If you didn't watch the highlights of the game against same under-21s game, if you didn't watch its highlights, Malaysia did start the game, and he was later substituted. But of course, he was quite, what you could see is a player determined. But in terms of being ready, I think he has got a long way to go. He struggled a bit in things that against under 21 kids probably you felt should have been basics. But you get it. This is a guy who has not been playing football at this level, at any level anyway, for 18 months. So you certainly think that it will take time for him, for his body first of all to open up, for his mentality to sink in and settle. Because clearly you could see a desperate player to, prove that he's ready, but it cannot come overnight. So it's a process. So you clearly see it. But like I was saying, that this the positive is that most of our players are returning from injuries. But what is the assurance? What's the guarantee that they won't go back again? That we won't reach somewhere in the season and again, nearly half of the squad is injured because one game or two someone drops off. I mean, it's a bit of a thing of a concern. But for Sekou Kone, we are waiting to see the proper report of how big the injury problem is. Of course, from the look of things, it looked like it wasn't so far off what Lenioro sustained, the metatarsal injury that he sustained that needed the surgery. We hope it's not the case with Sekou Kone. We're going to wait and see. But also, such injuries are also a good test for your bodies, because the speed at which you recover will also give an idea of how your career could be. There are players whose bodies don't recover fast from injuries. Now, if this boy is getting this injury at this time, not good at all, but it's again, it's part of the hazards of his job, and it's good he knows it from his post. But we want then to see how long it will take for him to fully recover, and when he recovers, at what levels will he be? Will he still have the character? Because he's a physical, robust player, even by his natural style, but even his position calls for that. Now, will he have the confidence to still go and get himself involved in duels the way he was? So such are the things that you monitor when you're looking at development of a player. Even if he's been good for the 3 games he's played for United, he has got to be consistent and prove himself that even within adversary, because football is like a war at this level. You've got to be able to endure and come back strong and keep competing. So it's sad, but indeed, again, the positive about it is that we get a chance to test him and see how his body reacts and how he himself, in terms of his mentality, he will respond. And maybe sooner, if it all goes well, sooner than later, he will be available for Ruben Amorim, of course, to include him as an option in his team. So that's the latest injury situation with the team, with Man United, and we do hope that all will go well. But in terms of the team, guys, we've been speaking about Ruben Amorim and what or what not he has got to do to ensure that this team comes back to top performances, stays competitive, and looks like Man United. But you think about it, and someone dropped a comment, and I'll say it. I mean, whereas Ruben Amorim has got a lot of work to do to try and help these players and this team get back where it's supposed to be, I think if I'm to put it in terms of percentages, I think the players have got probably 60% to do if United is going to get back where we think it's supposed to be. I think, honestly, for me, the bigger job is for the players than it is for the head coach. I think Amorim certainly has got to give them direction, to motivate them, give them the structure. But for me, clearly, from what we saw after the departure of Eric Ten Hag, clearly the it's up to these players to decide. They decide when they want to play or when they don't want to, if you get what I mean. Their attitude is really on them. We are not going to sit here and claim that Ruben Amorim will go and consistently be the one responsible for every for Marcus Rashford not running, or for Garnacho not tracking back, or for Bruno looking lazy if he does at all. Of course, it's not his habit. He never looks lazy. But the point is, these players have got to push themselves to be able to execute the things that Ruben Amorim is going to teach them, and all the structure that he wants to play in. Because he might come with all the tactics from Mars, but if these players are not motivated, they don't buy into it, and they're not motivated to play, we'll stay where we are. We'll stagnate and keep going back and forth, and perhaps Ineos will want to sack another manager and stuff. So for me, my biggest thing, even with all the excitement clearly that I have about Ruben Amorim and my expectation about him and what he's able to do with Man United, I honestly think the biggest job for this team is with the players. The biggest part to be done for Manchester United to get back up is with the players. If they don't push, they don't psych themselves up, trust you me, we shall be here. That's why, and I know he knows it, but that's why I think he will rely a lot on these youngsters, including Sekou Kone himself, who I believe will come good eventually. I think that's why he's got to rely on these youngsters, because the youngsters are more hungrier, that's one, but they're also more teachable and more easy to motivate. They're easier. It's easier to motivate a 19, 20-year-old kid than it would be to motivate a player in the evening of their career. They are probably at that time just looking at you, and from all the managers they have worked with, the head coaches they have worked with, they are listening to you and they are judging what you're telling them. In their heads, they are thinking, what do you know about football? How, what are you showing? Some of them could have played with him at some point. So they, it's difficult for certain senior players to really uh, ha- I mean, they can, if you have that maturity and professionalism, that's how it should be. But naturally, I think it's easier for the young ones to listen to Ruben Amorim with an open mind and execute and learn and be eager to learn and execute the things they tell them. I was watching a video of Marcelo in his most recent team back, I think, in his native Brazil, where he was being brought on by the manager. Old man, way older than him. But he was just refusing the instructions the manager was giving him until the manager was forced to tell him, go back on the bench, and he brought on someone else. And immediately they terminated his contract. So I mean, that's just an example of how some of these senior, of course, most of them will not do something like that. They will not show it. But at the back of their minds, usually some of these players will look down on the manager, on the head coach. Now imagine for a club like Man United, which we know is a player power FC, where players feel they are larger than life, and now you're giving them a 39-year-old, probably largely unproven manager to handle them when they have failed the likes of Jose Mourinho and what have you. It's certainly difficult for you to think that these players are going to be fully motivated and pushed to respect this guy. So even if they may try not to show it, at the back of their minds, they will certainly be going, what is he telling me? What football does he know? Does he think this is Braga or Sporting Lisbon? And inadvertently, that will be reflected in how they perform on the pitch. So that's why, for me, in this era, my hope for me in this Ruben Amorim era is largely on the youngins, and that's why I'll be concerned when I see a young Sekou Kone injured at this time when Amorim is just arriving. But not that I'm here to, I'll lose any bit of hope, but just to talk about it. Anyhow, that's my honest opinion. My name is Webb. Like, share, and subscribe as we continue to count down to the first game for Ruben Amorim after the international break. We'll keep, of course, tracking everything that happens at Manchester United as we get excited to kick off this new era of promise and hope.